Bitcoin is trading around $90,000. I am here to collect my clout. Those of you that have been in my comment section saying that Bitcoin is going to go down, we're in a bear market, everything's bearish, they've sold everything. What's up, guys? Now, let's get serious here. So I did call for a pump starting off for this weekend. I called this on last Friday and Thursday. I said that I was expecting a pump over the weekend and coming into this week and realistically speaking into the latter, I guess, end of quarter four. Now, why was that? So basically, we've had massive liquidations. We've had basically every single leverage was flushed out of the system ever since October 10th. We had all these spot ETF people that are all selling their bags. There was just max FUD, max fear. Stock market was selling down, and the tide sort of switched whenever we saw that most of these, leveraged long positions were out of the market. The sentiment was record lows, literally below the FTX collapse, which was horrible. This is worse than how it was in 2017, even when Bitcoin basically dropped like 60-70%. And it's due for a pump. Now, obviously, let's not get comfortable. I'm not here to say that we're gonna go back to all-time highs. I've highlighted really key areas of support and resistance. The big kind of area that we need to reclaim is around the 50-week simple moving average, which is around $98,000 to $99,000. If we can get above there at some point soon, that's going to be very bullish in my opinion. And then we have another boss, which is around 105, 106 region. That is a very key area of support that we need to flip because it's heavily resistance right now. And only until then are we going to go into back to all-time highs. Now, obviously, my line in the sand on the downside was about $75,000, which is what we need to maintain a bullish monthly structure for Bitcoin being in the bull market. Now, why is all this, kind of pumping going on right now? Now, obviously, the stock market and all that's going to be closed tomorrow. We have a half day on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And usually it's really cautious or I guess you should have caution whenever you're trading around these times, because whenever these stock markets and all that, like the CME, the futures close, there's typically CME gaps that are kind of filled. So we're good for now, but I want to be very careful going into the this week, because while I am leaning bullish for sure, there's some key things that you should probably pay attention to. Now, what we do have going for us is the Fed chair, the new Fed chair, I should say, has been announced, who is Hassant, something like that. Correct me in the comments. He is historically very pro weak dollar, money printing, low interest rates. And basically, we have a Fed pivot coming in December 1st. That's going to be the start of quantitative easing. We've been in a very, tightening environment where basically money has been pulled out of the system. And so naturally, that's going to weigh on liquidity sensitive assets like Bitcoin, crypto, all that kind of stuff. And so I think that, there's people that are of the opinion that we've been in a 4-year cycle. And you either have the people that follow the liquidity cycle, business cycle, or the Bitcoin halving cycle and all that kind of stuff. And what's weird is you're either in one side of those camps, right? And so one of them is basically saying everything's over from a Bitcoin 4-year cycle standpoint. But then if you're of the other side of the opinion where we're on this liquidity 4-year cycle, then we're just about to begin. And so I think that you could not be farther away from the other person. And so someone's going to be incredibly wrong, someone's going to be incredibly right. I don't think there's going to be necessarily something in the middle. Now, obviously, if we go into a recession and things just go bad from here, then yeah, obviously that's not going to be great. But, I tend to lean more towards the bullish side, as I've been saying for a while now, just because obviously Trump needs to look good, for midterms and all that kind of stuff. We have a very pro-Bitcoin administration. They're very pro-crypto, pro-blockchain. Aside from the clients of BlackRock and all that kind of selling off their Bitcoin, the big boys are actually accumulating. Texas just announced that they were buying $10 million worth of Bitcoin exposure, which is the first state in the United States to basically adopt Bitcoin as a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think that a lot of states are going to follow suit, and I think it's going to set the precedent for I guess, the coming years, right? And so obviously we have that. We have a very bullish outlook when it comes to the Fed. Obviously, interest rate cuts look like they're going to be cut in December. That was another thing that kind of sent us lower. I think that most of the sellers that are, 4-year cyclers of Bitcoin, they sold. Most retail people that were scared out of their positions that maybe bought a little bit higher, they're out of their positions. And so I wouldn't put it past just the big players in the game to send the price a little bit higher. Now, the words of caution are those key levels that I was mentioning previously. And the best thing that I can kind of say about this is you need like basically fresh people, like fresh money into the system, even if we are going to go lower. So the downside risk is basically them roping people in. Like I've always called for a relief rally. I always think that we're at least going to go into like the low $100,000 range. And if you're somebody that's kind of scared, then maybe you would probably look to de-risk at that point. However, if you're a market maker and you're trying to, send the price lower, as I said, you need to have new money in the system. And so the best way to do this is to make people FOMO back into the market. They'll buy at higher prices. That's basically fresh money that they can use for exit liquidity to then send the price lower, which is why those key areas of support are so important. So again, I am off right now. I'm gonna go, spend time with my family for Thanksgiving. I hope you guys enjoy your holiday. I'm going to continue to update you guys as best I can on a daily basis. If you have any questions or confusion as to what's going on in the market or what you want me to cover, feel free to drop them in the comment section, right? Again, turn on your bell notifications, smash the like button, help me get categorized in this algorithm. This is a relatively new channel and I want to help as many people as possible. I've been in crypto since 2016, so I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also done a lot of things right. And I want to help you guys avoid, obviously, the mistakes. So with that being said, trade safe, guys. Enjoy the pump. Bye.